All right, all right. Here we go. Hello, for those of you that are tuning in. So, will be yet again another update, and I think this will be the most up to date one because there's really no more filings. So, just first off, first order of business, I just want to say that you know this filing was actually sent to me before by TJ. So, thank you to TJ. First and foremost, that's TJ of TJV. Check out his channel because he's been covering all this stuff too. But he had sent me this filing before. The thing was, I had access to this filing, but for whatever reason, I completely overlooked it, and I hadn't downloaded it myself. So I went back and looked through all the ones that I had downloaded, and I went to where I download everything from, and I saw that I hadn't downloaded this one. So I finally did, redacted it. Now we got everything up to date. I also had overlooked some things, and it was good for TJ to have pointed that out because it's noob stuff that I should have known better. That I completely overlooked, like with the proposed thing, and something I realized after he pointed it out. So again, uh, thanks to TJ for that because I completely overlooked that. I was like, oh shit, that's right. This is a proposed order. I was like, I know this stuff. Like, I can't believe I noobed it up like that. But yeah, I realized that it was a sign. I was like, so that wasn't an order or it's not something that the judge had ordered, but we do have something that essentially is what the judge has more or less ordered. And that's what we're going to go over today. And I'll put it up on screen here. And I'm just going to give some thoughts. This stream shouldn't go too long, I don't think, but I'm just going to give some thoughts on what I think will be probably or speculate on some things that I think will could potentially come out of this. Of course, like I said, with court cases, you just never know. You have no idea how the wind's ever going to blow on these things. It's everything is pretty much speculation until things actually start happening, either in the courtroom or sometimes it doesn't even reach the courtroom. So while it's very possible that this could go to trial, and maybe that's what Ohm is hoping for, is that it goes to trial, or at the very least, it goes as far as to the point where he gets what he feels is the best compensation he probably could, which is obviously monetary compensation. Now, there could be an ulterior motive to all this. Maybe the whole point of all this is just to get to the discovery, right? Because depending on what Omer to get in discovery, which I don't know exactly what it is he'd be going for, that could be enough for him, right? On top of a monetary settlement, just to feel maybe vindicated in what he's been saying, right? The allegations that he's made himself. So it's hard to say, right? What the end game goal is for Ohm. Like I said, if I had to, in a lot of instances, what usually ends up happening with stuff like this is that they end in the most likely outcome. I think is probably going to be settlement, but that's not to say that that's what I think it's going to be, but that's not necessarily what it is going to be. It could end up going to court, could end up going the whole way through. I guess it just depends on the stubbornness of the parties involved, really, right? It depends on H2O's, stubbornness and Ohm's stubbornness in this matter, and see how far they're both willing to take this. There's been some missteps. I'll go over that on what I think that they are. Hey, what's up, Dev? Aura, let me just say hi to chat. Angry Pebble, Gabe the Gen, Zana, how you doing? Appreciate you all joining me this fine evening. But yeah, I'll go over some thoughts on that, but we'll try to get through this as quickly as possible. So I went ahead and as I always do, redact these things, even though, like I said, this is all public record. People know, people that have access to these, and not that they're impossible to find. We'll be able to know all the information that's in these. But like I said, just for the sake of, why, of not getting this video taken down, like I said, put some redaction. So it says here, Ohmwrecker and H2O Delirious are both well-known professional creators online, gamers who have millions of followers on social media. Plaintiff Ohmwrecker sued defendant Delirious for posting allegations of misconduct about about Ohmwrecker on social media and messaging others to harm him at his home address. Now, this is something you're going to see. I'm just going to let you all know right now. This is something you're going to see reiterated quite a few times throughout the course of this particular filing. Okay, is this whole thing of messaging others to harm him at his home address, right? So there we have. So Ohmwrecker claims that Smith's statements portrayed him in a false light, defamed him, interfered with his business prospects, and intentionally caused him severe emotional distress. Ohmwrecker moves to dismiss for Delirious moves to dismiss for lack of personal jurisdiction in proper venue, or in the alternative to transfer to the Eastern District of North Carolina. For the following reasons, Delirious's motion to dismiss for lack of personal jurisdiction or proper venue or to transfer to the Eastern District of North Carolina is denied. So, right off the bat, there you have. I mean, it's denied, right? For lack of personal jurisdiction. So on jurisdiction, dismissed, denied, and then we have on a rule 12b2 motion to dismiss. The court accepts as true all well-pleaded facts alleged in the complaint and resolves any factual disputes in the affidavits in favor of the plaintiff. And it cites a case here. Plaintiff Ohmwrecker, professionally known as Ohmwrecker, is a citizen and resident of Illinois. Defendant Delirious, professionally known as H2O Delirious, a citizen and resident of North Carolina. Both are professional creators of online video gaming, game streaming content broadcast on such streaming platforms as YouTube and Twitch. They each have millions of subscribers and social media followers from the online gaming community around the world. So it says here that Ohmwrecker had heard allegations that Delirious had sexual contact with a minor and that he had released RP against a different adult as partner. Lord discussed these allegations with some mutual friends. Okay, let's see when I should have redacted this a bit more. There's just so much. When Susan heard the Lord had been contacted to deny allegations, thought he was lying and blocked him on social media. Let me see. Then it says here, Delirious then created Twitter profiles under false names in a campaign to allegedly harass and defame Ohmwrecker within the online gaming community. Now, as we know, this has been proven to be true. At least to some degree, right? With some of the accounts, and that was, I think, one of the bigger missteps that Delirious made in this, right? Was allowing his, significant other to make that video. They should have just not said anything, even if it was true. But that's one of the biggest, things that they pretty much handed to Ohm on a silver platter was her making that video, which was stupid. I don't know what it should have just never been made. Even if she felt that her intention behind it was good, knowing the kind of person that Ohm is and seeing what he had done before in the past, I mean, they should have, and I think that Delirious should have known well enough that Ohm would potentially weaponize something like that, right? So they basically handed that to him on a silver platter. So let's see, false campaign to fame. Ohmwrecker was online gaming community. For example, on May 16th, 2021, Twitter user Brian, whatever number, alleged to be Delirious, threatened to expose a compromising video of Ohmwrecker and a woman from 16 years earlier. And on May 17th, 2021, Twitter user Hopper981 also alleged to be Delirious sent direct messages to Ohm's Twitter followers the following statement. He has released an S tape that he made long ago. He received so much hate from the phone calls because they said she was underage. She is not a good person. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, it says Ohmwrecker discussed the allegations against Delirious in an interview with YouTube channel Drama Alert. And this is another thing too that I think, and I'm just going to say this right now, right? This is the first shot that was fired in all this, was basically him going to Drama Alert and putting this out there, right? Ohm going to Drama Alert. And this is honestly right here. This is where you have the foundation for Delirious's countersuit, right? where he could say, look, this guy started it. He went on this huge channel, right? He went on this 5 million sub channel, and basically said that I was all the things that I've accused him of first. So let's see. Okay, and then it says here, Delirious then posted about Ohmwrecker publicly on Delirious's main Twitter account. About a month later, Twitter user Ohm lied, later renamed to DM Me for Truth. Both aliases Delirious used posted statements about Ohm having S contact with the minor. So this was one of the ones, the Ohm light account was one of the ones that was confirmed by Liz Katz. Again, huge misstep on their part. By putting that out there, by confirming that. Then we have here that Ohm sent a cease and desist letter, sent Delirious a cease and desist letter, demanding Delirious stop making false statements about him and retract his previous statements, including those made under false names. Now they both sent each other cease and desist letters that they both ignored and continue to talk about each other. Okay. But Delirious continued posting publicly about Ohm from alternative Twitter accounts. Collectively, the post falsely accusing Ohm of 1, having committed blackmail, 2, releasing RP, 3, having S relations with a minor, 4, uploading an S tape with a minor, 5, having police reports against him for stalking, and 6, stalking Delirious. Twitter investigated and suspended several of the profiles from which these statements were made and confirmed Delirious created them. Now, of course, look, we haven't, this is that infamous email, right, that supposedly Ohm has that confirms all this stuff that nobody has seen. But again, at this point, at least in regards to the ones that are mentioned in this document, he doesn't really need to show that email now, because you have an admission from Delirious's significant others, at least in regards to the Twitter accounts that are mentioned here, which are, they're going to be enough, right? They're going to be enough because of the fact that they said things that were defamatory, right? And they were confirmed to be Delirious. So, by and large, at this point, now the one thing is, it's not going to matter now. Now, in regards to the email, it's not really going to matter as much because of the admissions that we have, right? So Twitter user Delirious, not alleged to be Delirious, posted afterwards, defendant was only banned because he was showing people your past, but you, the internet care, reported him because you don't want people knowing your own past of being a racist, talking in pedo chats on old forums and releasing S-tape when someone wouldn't talk to you. Let's see. Delirious also engaged his girlfriend, who also has a large social media following, in making similar false statements about Ohm, and publicly commented as himself on another YouTube channel's live stream about the existence of an S-tape of Ohm and police reports of Ohm for stalking. Let's see. Delirious made nearly all statements about Ohmwrecker as public postings on social media platforms, either as himself or under alternate accounts, which again, unfortunately for Delirious in this situation, has been proven to be true because of because of the admissions, right? Basically, letting his girlfriend tell on him. So postings on Delirious's main Twitter account reached his 4.4 million followers. Also sent emails to several popular YouTube drama channels from the account Storm Susan 445 at yahoo.com. He direct messaged and emailed some of Ohm's online followers' friends, though Ohm does not identify who received these direct messages from emails nor where they reside. So this is interesting, right? Because we heard about this, right? The Storm Susan email that supposedly was emailing people, but nothing has been shown regarding that. Now, that's not to say that information does not exist and that Ohm and his lawyers don't have it. Maybe it's something that'll come out in court. Maybe it's something that'll come out through discovery. Who knows if it goes as far as court? Like I said, maybe that's something that they're saving. But it's interesting that the judge, took notice of that, right? Or the court took notice of that. The fact that they don't know where this supposed evidence is, right? So just an interesting thing there. So it says Delirious out at Ohmwrecker as, you know, it's that obviously says his real name, and posted Ohm's real photo, date of birth, and Illinois home address in public posts and direct messages. Now, this again, this has been confirmed to be true, right? He did send people that Kiwi Farms link. So he did, at least in private. It says public post, but I haven't seen anything, because even in these documents, everything that they show, right? And Chilled Venom was in here the other day. Those DMs were the DMs in one of the filings was from, from Chilled Venom. That was DMs that he had received, and obviously screenshots of other DMs from people that had received that same information. I don't think I had, outside of the tweet that Delirious put on his main Twitter, where he basically outed Ohm's, I believe, current girlfriend, where he basically, said her first and last name. I haven't seen anything. And again, not saying that evidence doesn't exist. I just haven't seen it. And I thought it would have been, a good move to post it in these filings, but maybe they're just saving it. Maybe they're saving it for a court situation. Who knows? Maybe there's a strategy for why it's not here, if it does exist. But I haven't seen anything like that. And I could be completely wrong. Maybe it's something that I just missed. I hadn't seen anything to that effect. Not in anybody's videos, not in anybody who's been covering this. I haven't seen that produced, right? So I think it's interesting that they're, saying that, or at least it's saying, public posts and direct messages for sure. There was the Kiwi Farms link, but as far as anything else, don't know. So at least some of his posts encouraged his followers, known as the Delirious Army, to threaten Lord with violence. Let me see. Also revealed the real name of Ohm's girlfriend in at least one of his posts. Received threats of violence himself against his dog and his girlfriend. Also actively searched for and made contact with his ex-girlfriend from 17 years ago regarding the false allegation of releasing RP and having intercourse with the release video with a minor. Okay, so, I don't doubt that Ohm has received threats. Of course, I think that they're definitely, it's definitely something that is, and threats should be taken seriously. But I mean, this, I'm sure even despite this, right, he was receiving threats before for his beef with Terrorizer and things like that. There's people on the internet, they do that, especially once you reach a certain status. I'm not saying that makes it okay. I'm not saying, hey, just deal with it, bro. Because you never know. People could be, people could make good on threats that they make. You can never be too careful. But the other thing that's mentioned here is the fact that he's saying that he was encouraged, the people were encouraged by Delirious, to do him harm and stuff like that. Again, I haven't seen anything, at least from Delirious's end, that says that he was, him encouraging people to harass him like that. But at the same time, we can't dismiss the fact that he was in private at least, was, trying to get people to look at his, private information by sending out the Kiwi Farms link, right? Now, obviously, I think the play here for Ohm's lawyers is going to be to say, hey, well, you know what? Even though he wasn't saying for people to harm him, he was kind of implying it, right? And I think that's what they're going to try to argue, is the implied, the implications of sharing that information, which be interesting to see how they're going to try to, make that case, right? Let me see. The false statement, others such as you have. Okay, and he is saying here that Ohm has Delirious has direct messaged and emailed with false statements and other distressing statements such as "you have no life" and calling him worthless and empathetic human trash. I'm sure, I'm sure that did a huge number on Ohm, right? Let's see some of the allegations. Let me see. Delirious made about Ohm involved another Illinois resident. Statements about police reports suggest was engaging Illinois law enforcement agencies. Let me see. It says that Ohm lost followers, sponsorships, collaboration opportunities with the streamers, viewerships viewership and income. Now, this is the other one I was talking about last time when we streamed, right? It'll be interesting to see what they're going to use to try to validate this, right? What argument they're going to try to make, because if Delirious's attorneys are smart and they're going to try to combat this, all you have to do, like I said, is just look at his Social Blade statistics. But outside of that, I mean, it was even before that, we know that the guy was already kind of he had already lost some unpopularity within that fan base, right? The Van Oscar fan base. I mean, before he even got into stuff with Delirious, he had that very public issue with Terrorizer. So you got to think that and how things were already going for him. He was already on a downward, trajectory. And as far as sponsors go, we see that they're plural, right? We've only seen Ohm really name one sponsorship in this lawsuit, which has no monetary loss attached to it. So who knows? Maybe there was, I don't know if there was already a contract in place when they decided to terminate, that being the Leviathan Core sponsorship that he was alleged to have lost, right, as a result of what Delirious was saying. We don't know if there was already a contract signed there and he lost it due to this, or if they were just in talks beforehand. Collaboration opportunities with other streamers, who knows? That's hard to say. I mean, we've seen that there's stuff that Ohm has done all on his own, right? I don't think that you could blame Delirious for the Ritz Play incident, right? Like the stuff that happened with Ritz Play, the very public falling out that he had with Ritz Plays, right? That where they had that little spat a couple months back. Okay. So, I would hope, like, again, if Delirious's attorneys are going to combat this, which again, they've made a lot of missteps in my opinion regarding this, because they should have countersued immediately, and did not. I would think that that'd be one of the things to combat this as well. I think Ohm himself, and especially if you look at Ohm's track record, if we've talked about this before, he's been in at least 3 or 4 gaming groups already, and he's pretty much been excommunicated from all of them. And seemingly it's been because of him in those instances. So, I mean, if you've been through that many game groups in that, in the course of, probably within the last, we'll say 5 to 10 years, roughly, or probably more, maybe even longer than that, he's been through, 3 to 4 different game groups. I mean, at some point, the common denominator as to what happened there is you, right? It's you, Ohm. I don't think you could just sit there and blame all the groups that you've been a part of for you not being in them anymore, right? When the common denominator seems to be you. So he suffered embarrassment, humiliation, mental anguish, and severe emotional distress. Yeah, probably. I mean, yeah, I could see. Yeah, I would say so, especially from everything that's happened publicly. I think the same, to a certain extent, could probably be argued for Delirious' side as well, right? From Delirious' conduct. However, Delirious, has never resided resided in or physically entered Illinois. He owns no real estate, businesses, or other assets here, and he works from his home in North Carolina. Smith wrote and published all social media posts and emails on North Carolina. Let's see. So his Delirious' girlfriend is also alleged to live in Illinois. Or no, that's Ohm's girlfriend also lives in Illinois. Not Illinois. Let's see. His public interactive YouTube channel and other social media profiles are viewable anywhere with an internet connection. Damn, you know what? I tried to mass redact this, but I still missed certain points. So I mean, it is what it is. I redacted most of it. I tried to do it just by word alone. Found it, but it looks like it missed a couple. So it is what it is. Whatever. But we'll keep going. Let's see. Brings Illinois state law claims. Okay, let's see. So it says Ohm brings Illinois state law claims against Delirious for false light, defamation per se, defamation, tortious interference. Now, this is the interesting one. We've talked about this before, the tortious interference, right? Which, again, I've only seen so far. The one that's been named has been the deal with Leviathan Core, which we don't know the specifics about that. Like I said, we might know as the time draws closer, maybe after discovery, maybe through certain filings. Like I said, I think it would have been good to see a monetary amount attached to that, to see if, to see how severe, right? To see how severe the losses, the quote unquote losses have been, right? As a result of this stuff happening, right? I can't imagine that it would be anywhere more than 5 digits. I could be completely wrong. If it was like a 6-figure deal that he lost, I think it would be much more impactful to just go ahead and put that on there, right? Especially if you're going to have the CEO of Leviathan Core either, testify on your behalf or whatever, right? That it would be good to put that there to just show, hey, look, I lost a very lucrative deal, excuse me, because of all these shenanigans and the things that this guy has said about me. So it says here, with perspective, economic advantage, intentional infliction of emotional distress. So it says, Delirious now moves to dismiss for lack of personal jurisdiction in proper venue, or in the alternative, to transfer venue to the Eastern District of North Carolina. The plaintiff bears the burden of proving personal jurisdiction when challenged, and then it cites a case here. Once defendant has submitted affidavits or other evidence in opposition to the exercise of jurisdiction, the plaintiff must go beyond the pleadings and submit affirmative evidence supporting the exercise of jurisdiction. And then it cites another case here. Whereas here there has been no jurisdictional hearings, the plaintiff need only set forth a prima facie showing of jurisdiction. The court reads the complaint liberally in its entirety and with every inference drawn in favor of the plaintiff to decide whether a prima facie case for personal jurisdiction exists. Then it cites the other case. Personal jurisdiction, federal court ordinarily follows state law in determining the bounds of jurisdiction over persons. That we have here, cites this law here. So it says Illinois's long arm, or I should say the statute, Illinois's long arm statute grants jurisdiction over non-residents coextensive with the federal standard for due process. Federal due process constrains a state's authority to bind a non-resident defendant to a judgment of its courts. Okay. And we have here, for this court to exercise personal jurisdiction, a non-resident defendant must have minimum contacts with Illinois such that the maintenance of the suit does not offend traditional notion of fair play and substantial justice. Internal quotations omitted. Personal jurisdiction may be general or specific. The parties agree this court does not have general personal jurisdiction over Delirious, who domiciled in North Carolina, has never set foot in Illinois, and has no regular business in Illinois. We see Ohm instead claims Smith's conduct established sufficient minimum contacts with Illinois to support specific personal jurisdiction. Specific or case-linked jurisdiction exists when 3 requirements are met. First, the defendant's contacts with the forum state must show that purposefully availed itself of the privilege of conducting business in the forum state or purposefully directed its activities in the state. Second, the plaintiff's alleged injury must have arisen out of the defendant's forum-related activities. And finally, any exercise of personal jurisdiction must comport with traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice. Okay, the court begins with whether Delirious purposefully directed his activities at Illinois. To answer this question in the intentional towards context, the Seventh Circuit has distilled from the Supreme Court's guidance, cites this case, intentional conduct or intentional and allegedly tortious conduct expressly aimed at the forum state with the defendant's knowledge that the effects would be felt, that the plaintiff would be injured in the forum state. Continue on, the Supreme Court clarified in Walden versus Fiore that the test for purposeful direction focuses on relationships among defendant, the forum, and the litigation. For a state to exercise jurisdiction consistent with the process, the defendant's suit-related conduct must create a substantial connection with the forum state. The Walden court emphasized that the relationship must arise out of context that the defendant himself creates with the forum state. The court's analysis is defendant-focused and contacts between the plaintiff and or third parties in the forum state with more do not satisfy due process. A defendant's contacts with the forum state may be intertwined with the transactions or interactions with the plaintiff or the parties, but A defendant's relationship with plaintiff or third party standing alone is an insufficient basis for jurisdiction. Okay, that's pretty interesting. So it says here, Delirious allegedly defamed and portrayed Ohm in a false light across interactive social media platforms. Delirious also defamed Ohm in direct messages to Ohm's online followers, some of whom may be in Illinois, but those whereabouts are essentially unknown. Okay, so it says here, Delirious' defamatory campaign against Ohm was diffused across the global online gaming community. Defendant has millions of fans and followers also around the world who follow his work and his social media profiles. Defendant began a malicious campaign to paint plaintiff in a false light. An online streaming community destroyed plaintiff's reputation. So this is interesting, right? The judge recognizes this, okay? Judge is recognizing that, this was all done in, malicious campaign to paint plaintiff in a false light in online streaming community. See, the thing is, all these arguments, I'll say this again, all these arguments can be used against Ohm too. And this is why I think it's such a big blunder on Delirious's lawyer's parts to not file countersuit, because again, Ohm fired the first shot. Ohm has said it's basically the same shit. They've done the same exact shit to each other, right? Because Ohm hasn't wasted any opportunity. I would even say in some instances, what Ohm has done has been more egregious, because Ohm has gone into people's comment sections, okay, and has said this stuff. Now, Delirious has said his stuff publicly too, but Ohm has gone out of his way to put it out there publicly as well, right? Like, I don't know how you see that, right, as Delirious' lawyers, and don't take advantage of that as well, right, to file countersuit. That he's, we all know that Ohm likes to write these dissertations, right? These essays on people's comment sections, basically defaming, doing the same exact shit, right? Now, for Ohm, he probably doesn't believe it's defamatory because, he believes it to be true. So for him, it's not defamation. But again, none of it has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt to be true, right? The things that he's said about Delirious. Now, the one thing, again, and this is the win that he gave, that Delirious and his girl gave him, was the admission of the fake accounts, which was dumb. They should have just not said anything, right? Should have just not said shit. Should have just, denied until something came out, proven otherwise. But like I said, that's a big W that they gave him. That again, and maybe not in the court of public opinion, but at least in terms of, actual civil court, that is going to be helpful towards Ohm in that regard. So we'll see. To what degree, I don't know yet. So this conduct alone was not directed. This conduct alone was not directed at Illinois and would not create a substantial connection with Illinois, other than through Ohm himself. Then it says the plaintiff cannot be only linked between the defendant and forum. Rather, it is in the defendant's conduct that must form the necessary connection with the forum. State that this is the basis for jurisdiction over him. Go on here. Specific jurisdiction must rest on the litigation-specific conduct of the defendant in the proposed form state. Moreover, as long as Ohm's real-world identity was divorced from his online gaming persona, his Ohmwrecker, there was nothing to tie defendant's conduct defaming Ohmwrecker to any state at all, let alone to Illinois specifically. Yeah, I guess. But even still, what's interesting is how this tries to paint how. And I think this is something, again, that Delirious's lawyers should be arguing against, right? And this is why I think it would have been pertinent for them to file a countersuit so they can say, hey, look, yeah, our client did, because it's again, because of their admissions, that kind of messed them up. He did spread along this person's information, but he didn't do it in the public eye. He did it behind the scenes, and he did it in retaliation. Even though that may not look good, at least then it would set some kind of, maybe it'll set some kind of precedent for there to be, understanding why all this dumb shit happened. It's just God, this is so dumb. Like I said, I said this before. This is a really dumb lawsuit. And it's interesting that it's seen as that somehow it was just Delirious's own doing that Ohm's information was out there, right? And I'm sure that Ohm's attorneys are more than happy to paint it that way because that's going to be the most beneficial to their client, right? So let me see. Let me see. He then published. I don't know if you could say, well, in a matter, I guess he did publish it, especially in those DMs, right? By sharing the link. So maybe in that regard, if that's the way they're going to interpret it. He then published Ohm's home address and directed those who saw the post to threaten. See, this is to threaten Ohm, right? Like this, I have not. Again, not saying that evidence doesn't exist. I haven't seen it where he has said anything remotely close to threatening. You know what I mean? Although again, maybe they'll make it. They'll argue that it was implied in some manner. So, which why wouldn't they, right? This practice of defamation and harassment in the online community is known as doxing. No, defamation. I mean, doxing is more. It's the posting of the personal information for the purpose. Doxing is more for it's posting the personal information for the purpose of harassing more than anything else. I mean, I guess by extension, it can also be to defame. But primarily, I mean, that's usually why, right? Why people dox other people is in the hopes that they will be harassed to some extent, or possibly yes, that some type of something will be invited upon them, right? By allegedly publishing Ohm's home address and encouraging others to take action against them, again, would like to see what specifically what call to action he was making, right? He expressly aimed his defamatory conduct at Illinois. This right here, this to me, I don't think that, I don't think that Delirious, had that kind of foresight, right? That his whole plan was to expressly aim the conduct at Illinois, right? Or the prospective business prospects at Illinois. I think it was really done more just to get at Ohm in the online space more than anything else. I don't think he was thinking that deeply into it, which again, to his own detriment, he should have known better. But I don't think he's that bright. I don't think he's that bright that he was thinking that far into it. So, let's see. Tortious acts. Okay, are sufficient. Okay, it says undertaken to express purpose of causing injury. There are sufficient to satisfy Calder's express aiming requirement of personal jurisdiction. So then we have here. All right, we'll go down here. Person's online persona, an online harassment campaign disclosing physical address by doxing, which could provoke more immediate response from local residents and was sufficient to establish minimum contacts with foreign state. Let me see. It says here, Delirious's conduct fulfills the express aiming test as outlined above Calder versus Jones. It is also consistent with Walden's defendant focused analysis. In Calder, the court had held that the Florida-based defendants in a defamation action had expressly aimed an article about the plaintiff toward magazine subscribers in California, where she lived and worked and would feel the brunt of the injury. Defendant's conduct therefore created sufficient minimum contacts with California that they could expect to be held to account there. Later in the court in Tambor versus Dorkin, applied this analysis to online communications. And several of the defendants had published false statements on their websites about the plaintiff, sent email blasts encouraging boycotts of the plaintiff's business, disclosed his Illinois address, and urged others to contact and harass him. This showed defendants had specifically aimed their tortious conduct at his business in Illinois with the knowledge that he lived, worked, and would suffer the brunt of injury there. The defense had expressed a goal of inflicting commercial reputational harm there in Illinois, even though the alleged defamatory and otherwise tortious statements were circulated more diffusely across the internet. This targeting of the plaintiff within jurisdiction satisfies Calder due process requirements for specific personal jurisdiction. like I said, I don't think that 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 he was looking to do any harm to necessarily to his potential business prospects in Illinois. I think he was just looking to do harm overall in terms of reputation, like he felt was being done to him in retaliation. So like I said, I don't think there was much of a deep thinking there on Delirious's part outside of just revenge. Likewise here, Delirious allegedly disclosed Ohm's real life identity and home address, which he most social media professionals with large online followings have purposely kept private. Although, again, his identity was already known publicly for anybody that wanted to look into Ohm. Like I said, I think there's a fair argument to be made that Delirious signal boosted it, even if he did it behind the scenes. Because there was obviously going to be other people that were going to talk about it and we're going to bring it to light. So in that regard. So again, argument to be made there for sure. Let me see. Okay, so it says here, although Delirious's public posts were accessible from anywhere by anyone, it is reasonable to infer Delirious intended those in Illinois specifically to act in response to his defamatory post. Yeah, no, I don't. Sorry, Judge. I don't buy that. Again, I don't think it was that deep. I think I think that the judge is really overestimating Delirious and Delirious's intentions here. I don't think it's that deep. Explain that the defendant who provides a physical location for targeted harassment intends to cause some action in the form state or catch the eye of the most able to make contact with the plaintiff in the state. He directed his followers directly to Ohm's door with that information. Defendant has directed his fans to my home address in Illinois, encourages fans to contact me and harass me, even when his fans commented on these posts with threats of violence against me. Again, I haven't seen anything where he makes that call to action. Maybe it would have, I guess, hindsight is 2020. Maybe you could say Delirious should have disavowed it. Maybe. But you know how these things go online, right? You can't really, even if you disavow stuff like that, you can't control what people are going to say. You just, you shouldn't encourage anything, right? You shouldn't say for them to do stuff like that, which again, I don't see anything to suggest that he was doing that. Any calls to action like that, at least none that have surfaced or that are publicly available. And again, maybe they'll come out in discovery. Maybe they'll come out, if they do deposition. Maybe that it's an ace, it's the ace up the sleeve that Ohm side has. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on that. So let's see. It says Delirious's conduct also satisfies the criteria for personal jurisdiction outlined in Walden versus Fior, decided after 10 further, which further clarified Calder and focused the relevant inquiry of defendants' suit-related conduct directed toward the form state rather than toward the plaintiff injured in the form state. The reputational injury caused by defendant's story would not have occurred, but for the fact that defendants wrote an article in publication in California. Defendant's intentional tort actually occurred in California. The 7th District has since disclaimed any implication that a court has personal jurisdiction over defendant solely for targeting a plaintiff who happens to reside in the form state and causing him foreseeable harm there. Let's see here. After all, there can be no doubt that the plaintiff can not only be linked between the defendant that form a decision that implies otherwise can no longer be considered authoritative. The court's minimum contact analysis looks to defendant's contacts with the form state itself, not the defendant's contacts with persons who reside there. But here the analysis is consistent with Walden and its progeny. Smith allegedly conducted a broad-based online defamatory campaign against Ohm and then revealed his Illinois address and encouraged his followers to threaten and harass him. He thus, one, targeted Illinois with these statements, two, affected Ohm's reputation in Illinois specifically. I mean, I don't know how well. See, this is one that I find interesting, right? Did he affected his reputation in Illinois specifically? Because I don't know how well known Ohm is. How well known he is in wherever he's from in Illinois. I mean, is he an outstanding member of his community? Is he like some kind of community organizer? Has he run for public office? I mean, what's the deal? Like, who is he in his community, and how badly does this really harm him? Right? Because from the way it seems, or the way he portrays himself online, he seems to, that's something that I guess him and Delirious like shared in common, right? Is that they tried to keep their identities as secret as possible. Of course, Delirious, I think, has done a much better job of it, right? And has been much more proactive in keeping his, face and his and that's, stuff like that off the internet to the best of his ability, right? Um, but this will be interesting to see how it is that this is going to be argued, right? Is how badly this affected his reputation in Illinois specifically, right? Are his chances to run for mayor now completely destroyed, right? I don't know, right? In a defamation claim, the key element is the publication of a false statement to a third party. As Walden clarified about Calder's holding, the reputational injury caused by the defendant's story would not have occurred, but for the fact that defendants wrote an article for publication in California that was read by a large number of California citizens because the Calder plaintiff was an actress whose career depended on her reputation. California defendants aimed their article at the state where their magazine had the most subscribers. Likewise, Delirious' disclosure tied Ohm's professional online reputation, his own record, to his personal reputation within his local Illinois community. See, I think this is interesting. Again, the way that this is being put here and the way the judge is discerning it, because again, it's almost like there's this idea that it's just Delirious, like Delirious is solely responsible, right? For people knowing Ohm's real name now, which again, I hope that this is something that Delirious' lawyers are able to, I mean, make a good case against, right? Because everybody knows that Ohm's information was already out on places like Kiwi Farms, and I'm sure maybe possibly other forum sites, right? So it's not like, again, I think the better argument to make is, yeah, that Delirious potentially signal boosted it, but it's not like it was already out there. He's not the sole, Delirious isn't the sole reason why that information is out there. Now, because of Delirious's alleged defamation campaign, the name, his real name is tied to the handle Ohmwrecker, along with his Illinois home address and other private details. The post alleges Ohmwrecker had S contact with the minor and released RP against her. It is reasonable to infer Delirious intended residents of Ohm's local community believe they were living near an S predator. Again, I don't think that Delirious thought that far ahead. I really don't. I think that they're giving him way too much credit here. That he was hoping that people within Ohm's neighborhood would lynch him. I think he was reckless in what he did. Right? I think it's fair to say Delirious was reckless in what he did. But I doubt that, and who knows, or maybe it was, maybe Delirious, has been playing 40 just this entire time, and this is exactly what he wanted, right? Was for people to go and lynch Ohm in his at his home, right? That this was his nefarious plan all along, right? I wonder how many people even know who the hell Ohm is in his own neighborhood, right? And the thing is, honestly, people are more likely to look shit up online to see which S predators are living, close to them, right? They're more likely to look that stuff up online if they have kids, if there's a lot of kids in the neighborhood and they want their neighborhood to be safe, or maybe they're moving into a certain neighborhood, they might be more likely to check to see which registered offenders are close to them. So let's see, but for Delirious' revelation of Ohmwrecker's identity and location, Ohm's local reputation would not have been injured. Yeah, I don't think it would have. But you never know. But again, this is why you shouldn't make. This is why I when it comes to online, this is why I say that this is the kind of these are the kind of allegations that nobody should be making towards each other, because they could potentially do harm, right, on both sides. And I would think, the same applies with Ohm, right? With what Ohm has said about Delirious. The same thing applies. So it says Delirious directed his online community to Illinois specifically by revealing Ohmwrecker's identity and home address there. Let me see. Test the defendant's own allegedly tortious conduct must directly be connected to the form itself, not just a plaintiff who resides there. Furthermore, by posting Ohm's address in conjunction with the defamatory campaign, Delirious similarly intended Illinois residents to contact and threaten violence against him at his home. Yeah, sorry, Judge. I don't think so. Right. I think they're giving Delirious way too much credit here, saying that was his nefarious plot all along. Right. So, but maybe, like I said, it's not outside of the realm of possibility. We'll see. Interest with their tweet by revealing plaintiff's address. Let's continue on here. Inside actions arisen in form state against plaintiff's form state from the situation where defendant merely identified in a blog post a librarian who worked indeed one of Delirious's followers said he was contemplating if it was worth going to prison for going after Ohm, suggesting the potential immediacy of the threat. Yeah, and again, this is not stuff that people should be saying, right? But this is stuff that's going to happen regardless of the situation, right? When people, especially online, of a substantial audience and fan base are going at each other, you're always going to have people doing dumb shit like this, feeling that they are protected because of the anonymity of the internet. And to a certain degree, they are, right? And that's why they feel emboldened to say shit like this. You think anybody like this would ever really act on it? There might be somebody crazy enough out there to do it, but by and large, not typically. But this is why you also got to be very careful with what you say and what you put out there, right? Let me see if Delirious had intended only to injure Ohmwrecker's online reputation as a video game streamer, there would have been no need to identify his physical location. This is, I understand why the judge would feel this way, right? If it was just but I think, and again, I could be completely wrong about this. I really do think that Delirious only intended to hurt his online reputation more than anything else. I think he was just really dumb about the way he went about it by sharing the Kiwi Farms link. You know what I mean? By saying, which again included all the personal information, because he shared that gives grounds to make this argument, right? That why'd you reveal his physical address if you didn't want physical harm to come to him? You know what I mean? It makes this argument easier to make because he did that. Do I think, again, this is my opinion, I don't think that was necessarily his intent, but it could have been. It very well could have been. I can't speak for Delirious. I don't know what's really in his head, on a surface level. I think his primary motivation was really just to harm his online reputation as much as he felt his online reputation was harmed. But like I said, who knows? Maybe he had more nefarious intentions. It's absolutely possible. We have to consider that possibility. Let me see. But here, Delirious indicated a specific intentional geographic focus for his post, tying the alleged defamation campaign to Illinois and its residents, and not solely to Ohm's online persona as Ohmwrecker. Again, I don't know about that, but it'll be interesting to see what the arguments are on both sides regarding that. Having satisfied the first test of specific personal jurisdiction, Delirious purposely directed his activities at Illinois and its residents. The next step in the analysis is to determine whether Ohm's injuries arose out of Delirious's forum-related activities. The Seventh Circuit has not indicated whether, in the context of any intentional tort, a defendant's forum-related activities must be but for cause or only the legal cause of plaintiff's injury. Then it cites this case again, approach inclining to adopt tortious misrepresentations, expressing aim that the form cite for the purpose of causing injury. They're sufficient under even the most rigorous approach of the determination of whether the plaintiff's injury arises out of the defendant's context with the form state. Let's see. Ohm's injury here does. Ohm did receive threats against his physical safety at home. Yes, of course. But, I'm pretty sure that those threats started. I'm sure those threats started long before Delirious, though, too. We'd be surprised if he was receiving those kind of threats beforehand when he was going at it with Terrorizer. So he also received threats of violence towards his dog, his girlfriend, whose identity was also revealed. And that is true, right? Because Delirious did put her first and last name out there. The threats were allegedly serious enough for Ohm to file reports with Elgin Police Department and an IC3 report with the Chicago FBI field office. Although doxing itself is not necessarily defamation, and in some states and stuff like that, it's not illegal either. The combination of defamatory statements involving S misconduct with minors and revealing Ohm's identity and home address produces the injury associated with defamation, humiliation, and loss of reputation within the local community. It's interesting because beforehand in this document, we saw it seems like it's contradicting itself a little bit here, right? That the doxing and defamation were that was somehow intertwined with the doxing, right? The defamation. Now it's saying, although doxing itself is not necessarily defamation, right? But I guess it's saying in conjunction with it and all that stuff. Which again, that'll be interesting to see how that's argued. So, address produced the injury associated with defamation. Okay. Moreover, Ohm has included a claim for intentional infliction of emotional, Ohm has included a claim for intentional infliction of emotional distress, which is directly tied to the fear he experienced with someone would have both the means and motivation to carry out such threats because of these posts. Yeah, and of course, that's fair, right? Because again, you never know how people are going to react. So yeah, it's possible. It's always within the realm of possibility. Ohm's injuries thus arose out of Delirious's form-related activities, defamatory posts aimed at Illinois residents, causing Ohm to fear for his safety because of allegations he was a S-predator. And that's fair, right? But what's interesting about that, though, is it's interesting that Ohm did the same exact thing to Delirious. But, that was okay, right? So the final step in the analysis asks whether but like I said before, he probably believes it to be true. So that's why he doesn't worry about how that could potentially affect Delirious's safety or the safety of his family, right? There will be. And this is why these kinds of allegations, the ones like that could have real world or potentially real world implications, should not be just thrown around online like it's nothing. Because it's interesting, you see here that obviously Ohm was concerned for his well-being, which he has every right to be. He has every right to be concerned for his well-being, for his dog's well-being, for his girlfriend's well-being, and stuff like that. But where was the same energy as some say, right? When it came to Delirious's family, right? Delirious has 2 kids. That's publicly known, right? His 2 young kids, and again, this is not me siding with Delirious, by the way. I think they're both, in my opinion, they're both idiots for this entire thing. They're both fucking stupid. This whole lawsuit is fucking dumb. I'm not really on anybody's side in this. Mistakes were made on both sides, and I'll get to what my opinion is on the matter when we get to the end of this document, at least in regards to this document, right? And where I think things kind of stand right now. The court considers the following relevant factors: the burden on the defendant, the form state's interest in adjudicating the dispute, the plaintiff's interest in obtaining convenient and effective relief. The interstate judicial system's interest in obtaining the most efficient resolution of controversies and shared interest of the several states in furthering fundamental substantive social policies. Where the first two requirements for exercising jurisdiction are met, the defendant seeking to defeat jurisdiction must present a compelling case in the presence of some other considerations would render jurisdiction unreasonable. Neither Ohm nor Delirious has addressed these factors in detail, as their arguments focused understandably on the purposeful direction of Delirious's activities. Considering the information available to the court, it would not be unreasonable for Ohm to defend himself in Chicago, where this court sits. As has often been noted in similar disputes, Illinois has a strong interest in providing a forum of its residents to seek redress toward injuries suffered within the state and inflicted by out-of-state actors. Let me see. Ohm would bear some responsibility. Ohm would bear some burden in being forced to defend himself in Illinois, but out-of-state defendants always face such a burden. But his is not any greater than routinely tolerated by courts exercising specific jurisdiction against non-residents, or I mean, that might have been Delirious. It said there. This burden, however, is considerably lessened by the availability of virtual status hearings and remote discovery techniques. The third factor, the plaintiff's interest in obtaining convenient and effective relief, weighs slightly in favor of Illinois, where Ohm and several of his witnesses reside. The final two factors are neutral, efficient resolution of the matter can be achieved in Illinois just as easily as in any other forum, and in any ordinary tort litigation such as this, there is nothing to advance the shared interests of several states and furthering fundamental substantive social policies. So as we go on here, given these factors, it is unreasonable for, I think this is Delirious to defend himself, and it is not unreasonable for Delirious to defend himself in Illinois. In some, Ohm's suit-related conduct created a substantial relationship with Illinois because Ohm has shown. Because Ohm has shown sufficient minimum contacts between Delirious and Illinois, it would not offend traditional notion of fair play and substantial justice for this court to exercise personal jurisdiction over Delirious. The court denies Delirious's motion to dismiss for lack of personal jurisdiction. Okay, so it says here venue, motion to dismiss for improper venue. And then it cites what the laws in regards to that judicial district in which any defendant resides, if any defendants are residents of the state in which the district is located, a judicial district in which a substantial part of the events or omissions given rise to the claim occurred, or a substantial part of the property that is the subject of the action is situated, or if there is no district in which any action may otherwise be brought as provided in this section, any judicial district in which any defendant is subject to the court's personal jurisdiction in respect to such action. District courts have a substantial amount of discretion in determining venue, which is an inquiry focused on fairness and convenience of the parties as opposed to constitutional considerations. When challenged, the plaintiff bears the burden of proving venue is proper. Then it cites some more cases here. Let me see. Delirious argues Ohm cannot show proper venue under 139B2 because he cannot show a substantial part of the events or omissions giving rise to. Ohm's claims occurred in Northern District of Illinois. Court in this district have found that 139B2 can be satisfied by a communication transmitted to or from the district in which the cause of action was filed, given a sufficient relationship between the communication and the cause of the action. Here's a substantial part of the communication at issue in litigation were transmitted to the Northern District of Illinois, namely the death threats and other death threats of violence, and Ohm received because of the alleged defamation. Let me see. Delirious also allegedly contacted Ohm's ex-girlfriend, that being Goose, a resident of that county at the time of the outreach. Let me see. Ohm further alleges that Delirious directly sent him messages with insults and other distressing statements. In the context of this litigation, these communications show a substantial part of the events that gave rise to Ohm's claims occurred in Northern District of Illinois. Finally, even if these contacts were insufficient to constitute a substantial part of the event or omissions given rise to this suit, Ohm would find recourse in 1391B3. As discussed above, the court has personal jurisdiction over Delirious in this action. Delirious's motion to dismiss for improper venue is denied. Motion to transfer to the Eastern District Court of North Carolina. In alternative, let me see. This is Delirious argues that this action should be transferred to the Eastern District of North Carolina. The relevant statute provides for the convenience of parties and witnesses in the interest of justice. A district court may transfer any civil action to any other district or division where it might have been brought. The court must evaluate both the convenience of the parties and the various public interest considerations. In determining whether the transfer would be in the interest of justice, a court may consider several factors, including docket congestion, the likely speed of trial in the transferor, and the potential transferee forms, each court's relative familiarity with relevant law, the respective desirability of resolving controversies in each locale, and the relationship of each community to the controversy. Starting the analysis of the convenience of the parties, courts generally consider the availability and access to witnesses and each party's access to distance from resources in each forum. Other related factors include the location of material events and relative ease of access to sources of proof. Here the parties have suggested their respective partners who live in their same respective districts will be a relevant fact witness regarding the underlying events in the aftermath. All messages that at least one of, this is Delirious has suggested at least one of Ohm's Delirious has suggested at least one of Delirious' sponsors, Epic Games, a North Carolina company, and company employees would testify to any loss of reputation within Ohm's community. I think that's Ohm right there, right? Ohm, for his part, suggests the CEO I think that's Ohm. Yeah, suggests that the CEO of Illinois company Leviathan Core LLC would be called as a witness regarding damage to his professional reputation and perhaps most critically to the defamation case, where truth is complete defense to defamatory statement. Ohm's former girlfriend, Goose, resides in Northern District of Illinois. As many of the allegedly defamatory posts concerned her involvement with Ohm, she will likely be an important witness. Other than the witnesses themselves, it appears a relative ease of access to sources of proof in the same regardless of venue. Okay, so this is interesting, right? So here we have basically more than likely these are two people that will be called. I don't know if Ohm's girlfriend will end up testifying. She could. They've gone to great length, like I said, to try to kind of keep her out of this in terms of these public filings. So I don't know if she wants to be involved in it. She very well could be, though. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, right, that she'll be a witness. Ohm's ex-girlfriend will probably be a witness in this. And more than likely, if this goes to deposition first, that'll all be transcribed. We'll either get transcripts of that unless they decide that they want it to be something more. They usually always film these kind of depositions, unless both parties mutually agree to not have it filmed, which I would think that's a likely outcome, is that they won't have it filmed, that the deposition will not be filmed, that they'll just go ahead and have lawyers there, and there could be an audio recording of it, but it might not be filmed, or they'll just have a court reporter there that's going to basically, there'll be a transcript of it later. I think that's the most likely scenario. I don't think either one of them is going to want it to be filmed, but I could be wrong. It could very well be filmed, or at the very least an audio file. But at the very least, if they get that far right in terms of depositions, we'll expect to have this be in a court report where it'll be transcribed. And if that happens, like I said, if it gets that far, if there's no settlement prior to that, if there's no mediation ordered prior to that, or they get together for any kind of settlement, I'll be looking very much forward to seeing what what is said in that deposition and what comes out of any kind of discovery that's put out there. So you think Ohm won't care if it's filmed? Well, I mean, for him in that regard, right? If he decides that he wants it filmed, right, it would be, I would think that if he doesn't care, it's because, you know, he wants Delirious' face to be out there, right? Because unless they agree to have it be private, I mean, it won't be hard to get a hold of a video deposition. There's means to get a hold of stuff like that. Hell, there's means to get a hold of hearings, right? If they have a hearing via like Zoom or something like that, which happens a lot, right? And Delirious is ordered to be a part of that hearing, which again, more than likely, this is all just going to be attorneys. I doubt that either one of them will even necessarily have to be there. They'll, as long as attorneys are present, I'm pretty sure that that's all they're going to need is just attorneys there. So, but with every state, laws are different. I don't know what the judge is going to order unless the judge orders something. So, yeah, I think, for him, it would be, if he wants it to all be out there, to be, in the interest of transparency, which surprisingly, again, given the fact that he himself hasn't been too transparent with information, but I'm sure if it's something that will, potentially look bad on Delirious and his side, I'm sure he'd be all for that being out there, maybe, but we'll see. But if it's a thing where they have to appear on camera, I doubt. I think Delirious would do everything in his power to make sure that it's not something that will be recorded. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Let's see. Important witnesses himself. So yeah, I think that on Delirious' side, and again, this is speculation, I'm pretty sure Liz is going to be one of his witnesses. I'm sure Cartoons is going to be another one. And whoever else he decides, hell, we'll see who else gets involved in this. So it says witnesses and tips the balance in favor of Ohm. Moving to the public interest factors, the court finds no compelling reason to disturb the plaintiff's choice of venue, comparing the relative length of time to trial in each venue. Let's see. Delirious only claims docket congestion is at the very most neutral. Ohm, on the other hand, shows the average length of time to resolve a case in Northern District of Illinois is 7.2 months, where it takes 11.6 months in the Eastern District of North Carolina. Okay, so what does this mean here? So obviously, this to me, this is an important factor in all this too that I haven't really touched up upon. Obviously, things seem to move a lot quicker in Illinois from what it's stating here on average. And there could be two reasons why Ohm and his lawyers want this, right? Because again, either it's because, to me, and this is just me speculating, I believe that this is being done in order to get discovery faster. That's just my assumption. I'm purely speculating that that's the reason why. Okay. Is to get to discovery a lot faster, is to potentially get to move things along faster, right? Get to trial faster, get to deposition faster. I think his side believes that will be more beneficial to him. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Maybe more time might help build a stronger case and get more discovery and more evidence. I don't know, but I could only ascertain from this is that, they're hoping to get all this information a lot faster, right? For whatever reason. Ohm is the kind of person that looks like he's willing to take this as far as it can possibly go, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was just all to get the dirt, or what he believes is the ultimate dirt, right? Because that's been a tactic of people before in the past as well when it comes to these lawsuits, right? Is that some people, they just want to get discovery, as crazy as it sounds, but I think, this was one of the things that we kind of saw in the Vic Mignogna case. And the reason I say that is because if for those of you that remember that case or follow that case, if you remember, the people Vic was suing, they wanted to get discovery, but they dragged their feet when it came to them giving discovery to Vic's lawyers. And the only thing we could really assume as to why they were doing that is because they wanted to be able, and remember, Ron Toye himself was basically more or less hinting to the fact that they were trying to get that discovery so they could more or less, win in the court of public opinion. Because sometimes for people, that's more valuable of a win to them than getting any kind of monetary compensation. Sometimes for some, it's just, the optics war, winning the optics war. I'm not saying that that's necessarily what Ohm is going to do, but it's certainly, I think it's certainly within the realm of possibility. Because if you think about all the stuff, his main arguments against Delirious, right, have been the whole thing with him, the things that he, the threats supposedly towards the alleged threats towards the women and whatnot, and saying that he's a pred and things like that. I don't know if he's going to get that kind of discovery from this, because again, that has to do with these other people, right? It has to, that's not really pertinent to what he's suing Delirious for. But maybe if he's able to get some kind of, data dump of stuff, right? Or anything that looks like it will validate the claims that he's made against Delirious. I mean, why wouldn't you take advantage of that, right? If you're Ohm, to be able to say, hey, I was right all along. Look, here it is. And I obtained all this stuff legally, right? I went through a legal system, to obtain all this information. So, like I said, I don't think he'll get what he thinks he's going to get, but you never know. So, let's continue on here. As filed, Illinois state law claims a court in Illinois will be more familiar with applying Illinois law than a court in North Carolina. Finally, it is not desirable to resolve this controversy in North Carolina for the same reason that Illinois community has a closer relationship to the controversy. The claims involve the alleged injury to a plaintiff in Illinois arising out of defendant's activities directed at the forum state. Illinois has a strong interest in providing a forum for its residents to seek redress for tort injuries suffered within the state and inflicted by out-of-state actors. The public interest factors, therefore, do not weigh in favor of transfer. The court denies Delirious's motion to transfer venue to Eastern District of North Carolina. The court denies Delirious's motion to dismiss for lack of personal jurisdiction and improper venue. The court also denies the motion to transfer venue to the Eastern District of North Carolina. As you can see here, this is signed by the judge. So I'm pretty sure the only thing left is, any more documentation, but it's fair to say that this is ordered at this point because, this was signed by the judge. The other thing too, the thing about this, I will say this, in my opinion of this whole thing overall is this is not good for Delirious, but it's not to say, oh, hey, this, Ohm's got it, right? Ohm's got it hook, line, and sinker. At this point, I think objectively speaking, it's fair to say that Ohm has a little bit more the advantage in the sense that it's going to be tried in his state, which will be, less of a financial burden for him, for one, and will make the things he needs for his case much more accessible for the arguments that he's trying to make in this case, that being how it affected him in Illinois and things like that. So things will be much more easily accessible to him. So that certainly gives him an advantage in that regard, right? The quote unquote home field advantage is what he'll have in this particular instance. That doesn't mean that the case will necessarily turn in his favor, but due to a lot of the missteps I've seen on Delirious's team's part, where again, I feel that they should have filed countersuit because a lot of these same arguments would have applied to Ohm as well. And in some cases, like I said, some were more egregious. And the thing is, at this point, they've also given Ohm time to clean up to basically kind of do a little bit of cleaning up after himself. You know what I mean? Cleaning up his tracks a little bit. I don't know. And TJ, maybe you could tell me this, right? I don't know if any of the comments that Ohm posted on your videos are still up. I would think they would still be there, but given the fact that, again, Delirious's attorneys have not, have not tried to make a countersuit argument to the same degree, saying that, hey, look, yes, our client did these things, but he did them in retaliation to the fact that this guy basically said all these things first. He said the exact same things first. So I don't know, but again, this gives them the opportunity. Granted, once you're ordered to not delete things, you're not supposed to. But that's I don't It doesn't seem like nothing has been listed for when discovery is due that I've seen yet, as far as the court filings. And once those letters are sent out that, hey, don't delete anything, don't get rid of anything, you have to adhere to that. But that hasn't stopped people before in the past from trying to cover their tracks. So, let me see. I made a video of them and have them public. Most of Ohm's comics weren't as bad as Delirious in terms of defamation or harassment. Yeah, but they both defamed each other. Even if regardless of what opinion people might have on the on what they feel is more egregious, they both did it. And here's the other thing too. And this happened in my chat. I don't know if it happened in your chat, but I'm pretty sure it happened in your chat too. Ohm did dox Delirious as well, publicly. So it's not, again, all the arguments that could be made against, Delirious can also be made against Ohm. He called Delirious a pedo, and a pred very publicly on more than one occasion. Like I said, all these same things apply. Delirious might have, covered his tracks there in those videos and stuff like that, but he did say that. And the thing is, I posted those comments as well on my video, which is still very public, which can still be cited. So they both played this game with each other. So but what I think though is, again, because of the fact that Delirious's attorneys haven't really done anything to take advantage of that, I think is a huge. Yeah. I'm going to send you the link to come in here too. It's a huge misstep on Delirious's legal team's part, in my opinion. That's not to say that, maybe they have an ace up their sleeve, but it is so ridiculous to me that no countersuit was filed when they had grounds to do so. All right, let me get TJ in here. Let me send him a link. So ridiculous. No. Yo-Yo, there's no court date set. There's no court date set just yet. That'll come later. What I speculate will, I sent you the link via DMs on Twitter, TJ. So just hop in here when you get a chance. No court date has been set, but given to how seemingly how quickly things seem to go in Illinois, I wouldn't be surprised if within the next couple months here, we see a potential state set. But usually what'll happen first is going to be hearings first, where what'll happen is that they'll have what is called a case management conference, which is basically they will decide, the court will decide that being the judge and the lawyers. Oh, TJ's here. Hey, what's up, TJ?
What's up?
How you doing, buddy? What'll happen is they'll have what's called a CMC, Courts Case Management Conference, where basically the judge and the attorneys will get together. It's kind of like a pre-game plan where they decide what the next step is going to be. That could potentially include a court date. Usually doesn't. What'll happen is that the judge will more or less, they'll give them the opportunity to be like, hey, do you all want to try to settle this? Do you guys want to talk about potential settlement? Do you guys want to try to do that? Do you want this to go to trial? What are we doing here, basically? So the judge will give the opportunity for the lawyers to get together and decide what the next step is going to be. That could be for when they set up that deposition, things like that. What will also happen is that the judge will then decide, hey, they'll look and see what the lawyers want to do and said, okay, discovery has to be in by such and such date. Then we're going to set trial for this date since you guys couldn't come to any kind of resolution. And then from there, we'll see if it ends up going to trial or not. So, yeah, that's basically probably the most likely, that'll probably most likely be the next filing will be some kind of, a CMC, we'll be hearing for a CMC probably. But yeah, so you were saying you think that Ohm's got a little bit more of an edge here.
Yeah, I definitely do. I think that well, we'll have to see more on how, like, what Delirious and his attorneys end up filing. So far we haven't really seen much, but
I think his attorneys are doing a poor job, because I would have filed a countersuit immediately.
Right, and it doesn't seem like, I guess they're not going that route right now. Right now, they just kind of want to play the defense right now. But I don't know. I do think that, I think they're going to have a little bit of a harder time because of a lot of the Delirious fuck ups that we've been seeing. Some of them that I covered, some of them that I didn't even know about for the longest time. But I've had a couple of those calls in the past where Ohm has tried to explain everything that Delirious has done, and you don't really get to see all of that. So hopefully, if all of that ends up being true, Ohm and his attorneys list out all of that in these filings, and through discovery and everything, they end up finding all the evidence they can if these things really are true and Delirious is a monster like he's trying to paint him out to be. But for right now, we have to see whether or not how the defense is going to go, even if they do discover some, how much of that's going to be made public to us, what's everything that we'll be able to see and everything like that. Because correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have to technically see everything in court documents that are released. They might not throw everything in there that's counted as evidence, but I don't know, maybe they will. I know if they reference it, they definitely have to talk about it, but
usually, well, that's the thing. Like, I think that, and that's the thing, that's where it basically comes down to the lawyer strategy. Because like I said, there's a lot of stuff that is expressly alleged in these court, and we've seen in these court documents, and in the last one, right? Like the last one I showed, they did show some of that. But I think, like I said, like when it comes to the tortious interference and him saying, hey, I lost the sponsorship with this company, I think that it would go a much longer way to show the kind of damages that he lost. But then again, that could be a strategy. Maybe that's something they're waiting to do in court. I don't know. But to put a number, to attach a number to it, I think would it looks like the judge obviously saw everything and seems to, it's obviously agrees with a lot of it. That's why she signed this. But the thing is, I think that would just show the severity of the losses. So I don't know. And that's the interesting thing about this. And that's what I think we'll find out in discovery and in the court, if there was actually a signed contract, because there's tortious interference with contract, which is different. That actually would make things worse, right? If he can prove that there was a signed contract between him and Leviathan Corp. And because of this, as a direct result of this, he lost that. But here's the other thing, though, too, that's interesting. And again, this is alleged. I'm not saying this is fact, but my understanding is that Delirious and I'm not going to name the other two members, but apparently Delirious and two other members of the Vanoss crew lost a sponsorship because of Ohm's allegations as well. So, if they're able to show that, I mean, and that's why I think see, this is where it's frustrating for me, because it's just like, why didn't your lawyers file a countersuit? Because you could show tortious interference as well with actual significant damages, and not necessarily that you have to name the other people either, but show your damages, because I heard what the dollar amount was. Again, I'm not going to reveal how I found that out, and I'm not saying nobody has to take my word for it either. You know what I mean? But it was a substantial amount from my understanding. And it was like, you could easily, again, all the stuff that Ohm is suing Delirious for, honestly, Delirious could sue him right back for the same exact things. So it's wild, man. That's why it's like, I don't understand the strategy of just kind of just saying of not really saying anything. Because if you look at the court filings that Delirious's lawyers have put out, it's just kind of like, well, hey, this should be dismissed. And that's it. It's just like, okay.
Right.
It's just like
another interesting thing too is that Delirious kind of stayed quiet on Twitter for a certain amount of time before, like, when the drama alert and everything else was coming out, and there was a lot more of beef happening between Ohm and a lot of the Vanos crew, like the girlfriends and everything, Wildcat and his girl and everything like that. So I know Delirious and his attorneys can probably bring up that there was a large amount of people who were already angry at Ohm before Delirious started tweeting anything as well. So
that's what I was saying earlier too.
So the fact that Delirious attorneys aren't bringing this up just shows that maybe Delirious doesn't have the best attorneys, or maybe they're waiting to do all this. Maybe they're waiting, they don't want to do it all out of the gate, but I don't know. I mean, I think that would help with the whole dismissal, and stuff like that. Like if they were trying to dismiss the case, maybe, the court would say, hey, if you're going to sue for this reason, you got to be suing all of them for the same reason, because they all participated in some way to make a large following dislike you and have that large following do this and that. But then you would have an argument on, did each of the members of the Vanos crew have enough influence on people to go out, and because they were people who sent death threats and threatened Ohm's dog and threatened Ohm's family and all that stuff. So whether or not they had any influence is a whole nother thing that they're going to have to fight and argue too. So I don't know, it's really difficult, but with everything that they presented in that initial filing that you did in the live stream, there was a lot of stuff on Delirious. So I do think Ohm has the edge overall, but how they go forward, if Delirious and his attorneys don't start taking better steps at all, then I would say it's way more in Ohm's favor than Delirious's. But again, it all depends if they're going to take any more major steps this year of 2023.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm looking to see what the strategy here is, because again, because that's something I'd mentioned too earlier. I don't know if you heard for that, but when you go back to the stuff, even the drama before Delirious, the drama with Terrorizer, I mean, I'm pretty sure around that time, Ohm was getting threats and stuff like that, because that's what happens when people beef and they got a significant following. There's always going to be those fans that, regardless of what you tell them, regardless of what you say, they're going to say, stuff like that, unfortunately,
Yep. I made a video about the whole Ohmwrecker and Terrorizer beef. There was this channel who downloaded a clip of Terrorizer talking about the Ohm thing or whatever, and re-uploaded it, I think. And then some Ohm commented on that clip that some rando on YouTube uploaded or whatever, and I made a whole commentary video talking about Ohm. This is my first video I made about Ohm. Same video that Wildcat wanted me to take down when they were gonna try to resolve things, apparently. And I remember at that time in that comment section, a lot of people were going after Ohm, and the drama wasn't even like mainstream at that point. We haven't been to the drama alert phase yet. They weren't talking on Twitter all the time about this. So I don't know.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, what Aura says here is I also agree with. I also think some of the legal teams are doing this to make more money. Absolutely. Did you saw my last stream, right, where I covered that huge filing? That was a padded filing. There was no reason, and that's the thing. Lawyers charge you for that. You know what I mean? The more they put into a document, the more you get charged. And the thing is that filing had so much information. I was like, this is not necessarily relevant to anything. Like it literally had all of Goose's like the cars that she owned with the VIN numbers. It had properties that she owned on there, financial information. Bro, it even had information of court appearances that she had made in the past for other things, man. And it's just like, this is wild. It's like, why is this not relevant at all?
I got a question for you. Which I know this is going to be kind of hard to say because maybe we haven't seen everything, and it certainly isn't over. But as far as everything that we have seen so much in these filings and everything, which team, Ohm's attorneys or Delirious attorneys, are like have more bang for their buck, who that have done more stuff for getting paid? Who do you think that is, Ohm or Delirious's?
Ohm's attorneys.
I think
100%, 100%. Because the thing is like that last filing though, that was absolutely a padded filing. Like it didn't need to be. Like I'm just like, none of this is relevant unless
they have a lot of information, useless or not. They still have all that information.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about it though too. Like I said, those kinds of filings though, they make attorneys money. You know what I mean?
Right,
so
right.
I hope at the very least that I don't think that they read it by Ohm beforehand, but maybe they did. It's like, hey, is this okay? We put all this stuff in, and he was like, fine. I was just like, bro,
I'm sure they have Zoom calls and they're going over everything. They
padded that shit, dude. It's just like none of that stuff is gonna be relevant to anything that, you know what I mean? To anything that's gonna proceed. You know what I mean? It's just
I'll have to check it out. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, if you want, I'll send it to you later if you want. You could look at it, bro, because it is wild. I'm like, why? Okay, they don't need to have this woman's life story in here. It's just like, and now I'm guessing this is to prove that she exists, that she's a real person. All that. It's like there's other ways you could do that without like putting all her business into this kind of filing. Not that, I mean, obviously there's places to look where you could find that information. It's publicly available information if you know where to look, but it's just like you don't need to put all this in a court in a filing like this. You just don't. It's just like it's not relevant at all. So it's just like, and it's not going to be something that's going to come out in depositions or when she's called to be a witness. You know what I mean? Everything that comes out is just going to be pertinent to what was said about her publicly, true or not. And that's about it. I mean, I don't see, I mean, maybe possibly if anything, they gave Delirious's attorneys more information on her to maybe potentially try to discredit her. But even then it's just like, for what,
Right.
But it's just, it's dumb. It was it was just a bloated filing that I was just like, okay, I don't know what the fuck is happening here. I mean, this is, and that was Ohm's new attorney that did that. That was his new attorney that did that filing. So I don't know. Maybe he just thought it's like, okay, let me just pad this one. This will be the first filing I'm doing for him. So let me just pad it as much as I can so I get a good amount of money here.
maybe it's like an intern or whatever getting its first gig and everything. Wanted to make sure they cover all the bases, and then they're going to get told later on, hey, you don't have to put in all this information, right?
maybe, yeah, there's a paralegal or something. Who knows? But it's wild, man. So... But I would agree that right now where it stands is, again, and it's not to say that he's going to win the case, but at least for now, he does have the home court advantage and things are going to be more accessible to him because of it being in Illinois.
I broke it down with percentages. I think Ohm is carrying like 65%. Like I would say that's roughly close. I mean, your numbers might differ and everything, but I'm saying like roughly 65%. That still gives Delirious 35%. I would say, but that's just like a rough number in my head.
I'm just curious to see what happens when they actually have a hearing and get those transcripts to see what's going to be talked about. If and that's probably something that'll happen after a case management, or maybe not, or I don't know. I don't know. It all depends on how things work over there in Illinois on what their procedure is. So to me, it's like, nothing is for sure with cases like this. It could be that maybe the judge is just like, hey, why don't you guys, I'm going to order mediation, I'm just going to order mediation and see if you guys can resolve this shit.
Right.
So I don't know. It all depends on what the judge also wants to do in this instance. Like I said, what the laws are in Illinois and what their procedure is in Illinois. But this is wild, man. Like, to me, like, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think this is a really fucking stupid lawsuit. This is coming from somebody that's covered like I think I've talked about like 2 or 3 different lawsuits on here. And one of the last one was the Zero versus Jisoo. I don't know if you know anything about that, but that one was entertaining. That was an entertaining one. This one is it's entertaining, but for a completely different reason, because it's really dumb. This is entertaining because of how stupid it is.
What were your thoughts on the skit that I uploaded?
Oh, I haven't seen it. Which one? No, I haven't seen it. Nah, man, I haven't seen it. I just got back online today, man.
Oh shit, my bad. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Chilled Venom and Sen likes it, and I have a funny feeling you'd like it too.
I'll check it out. I'll check it out later. Yeah, but it's the first day I've been online since I did the last stream. Because the thing was, like, when you pointed the thing out, I was like, oh my god, I can't believe I overlooked all this shit. And I remembered, it's like, oh shit, that's right. TJ did send this to me. I completely fucking forgot he sent me this shit. Because I remember you had sent it to me beforehand.
Right.
It's like, oh man, I forgot.
The video I made or whatever was like, at the very end of it or whatever, I put like a broad timeline, everything up until like December 14th. And that was right when, like, that was the next day after the filing that you were looking at. So I kind of covered that broadly. So if I ever made another video covering these filings and stuff, it would just to dive deeper, which you're kind of already diving deeper into it. People are able to come by and read the document for themselves on your stream or whatever. So if there's something new in January, because I think the last thing was on December 29th or whatever, they put out a reminder or annual reminder or whatever. So like if any new filings come out in January, that would be the time where I could come in and make it. But as far as like December, we kind of already know the decisions made in December, and nothing's going to change until January, February, May, whenever they hop back on this and start doing this again.
Well, there was on December 16th, there was a hearing ordered via like a Zoom app. It's kind of like a Zoom app that already happened, but there is that one was not, as far as I know, was not recorded, so it's not available. Right. So I don't know, outside of, if they made if there's a transcript for it, which I haven't found yet. I don't know what was said on that hearing, and more than likely it was probably just the attorneys talking with the judge.
I think if it gets to the point where they have like depositions and everything, I think that will be recorded. I honestly do think it'll be recorded.
Yeah. I mean, either at the very least, if it's not done via camera, they could do it audio if they agree with that. Or like I said, if they don't record it at all, what they'll usually do is they'll have a court reporter there. They'll assign a court reporter to take a transcript. So
right.
So even if it's not recorded, we should be able to find out what was said in the deposition at the very least via a transcript, which I should have access to. Because the thing is, what I noticed was when I looked back through my thing, I was like, oh shit, I didn't download some files. Like I thought I had them all. I was like, okay, here it is. So then I downloaded this one, finally downloaded this one, and I redacted it to the best of my ability. But there's so much shit to redact, man. It's just like, oh god, and I missed some of it. So not that it matters, like I said, really, but.
I didn't mean to throw you off guard with that or anything. I was just like, I don't know if this is the time for me to step in and say something, or so I just.
Oh no, it's fine.
I DM'd you.
No, it's fine, because I remember you had sent it to me before, and I fucking completely forgot about it, man. I was like, oh shit, that's right. I was like, oh my god, I completely forgot about all this shit.
Yeah,
so.
It'll be interesting if they end up having either transcripts, audio recordings, or video recording of like depositions and anything Delirious and Ohm has to say, because I think what Ohm is going to say is going to be kind of similar on the way he's been saying things online. But Delirious, on the other hand, if he has to address some of the things that he did himself, this will be the first time in a while, actually, that we've ever seen Delirious like address some of like either the mistakes or the reasoning why some of his actions were this way.
Yeah.
Because the only thing close to that was in live chats when he talked about like the alt account saying, yep, I did it. I know I was wrong for it. But like, that's the only time we've ever seen him do it. Ohm, on the other hand, he's admitted that he's done dumb stuff before. He's talked about this all the time. So I think it'll be super interesting to see like what they both have to say and like how they're instructed to by their attorneys. Like, okay, we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about that,
Yeah. Well, initially, like what'll probably happen, like I said, up until depositions, it'll be just the attorneys doing stuff. And then, like I said, probably, they'll both be ordered there to be a part of the deposition for, for them to ask Ohm stuff, whether it be remotely or in person. More than likely, a lot of those things end up happening in person. But unless there's some kind of, they come to some kind of agreement, okay, well, this person's just going to call in, right? Because Delirious could do a phone deposition where he just calls in and they'll record that. Or, Ohm could do the same. If Ohm decides, I'll just call in for the deposition. Because that has happened before too. But then again, like I said, I don't know what the procedure is for Illinois. Said if the judge will say, nah, both y'all got to be there or what, or
right.
if rules are different there. But it is possible to do that. It is possible to do a deposition remotely. But more for sure, the attorneys will be there. Delirious' his representation will be there. Ohm's representation will be there. Whether or not either one of them will be there physically, that'll be interesting to see if that happens.
Didn't that Nickelodeon star Drake Bell do something remotely like that?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it also happened in a case. It happened with the case of Richard C. Meyer versus Mark Wade. Richard C. Meyer actually showed up to I think he was there remotely as well. He was there via phone, like him and Mark Wade. They both called in. So they were both on the phone, able to hear what was happening as Mark Wade was being deposed.
Right.
He didn't actually have to show up, but that was in Texas, like I said. So I don't know what the laws are in, Illinois, if that's something that they'll require. I see no reason why they wouldn't have that available for people to be present via phone or Zoom app or whatever. So we'll have to wait and see, though, especially now in post Kufu, US, they
right,
with the laws, whatever the laws might be in Illinois, maybe they'll be like, oh yeah, for sure, you don't have to show up because we don't want you to get sick. So I don't know. But we'll see. Surprisingly, Dev is saying, I'm having a hard time thinking Ohm will listen to his attorney. I think he actually did. I think he actually has been listening, because if you notice, he's actually been pretty quiet, especially after he lost his first attorney. I mean, and that's probably why he lost his first attorney, because his attorney withdrew, right? His attorney was like, I'm out.
Well, I can believe that Ohm listens to attorneys. I mean, for the longest time, like anybody who's had a private call with Ohm has heard at least once or twice. I don't know. I'd have to ask my attorney. I've heard that so many times. Asking questions sometimes. I'm sure Chilled Venom's heard that before with private calls with Ohm. So, it ain't too hard to believe Ohm's been listening to his attorneys. Now, granted, back when this all started and he was massively tweeting a lot, oh yeah, I don't think he was taking. No. I don't think he had any attorney advice at that point. And if he did, he certainly wasn't listening to it. But
that's what I'm thinking, man. I don't know, man, because it's just like around.
Yeah,
he was saying a lot of stuff, and then his attorney withdrew. And like I said, I don't know specifically what it was for. Although the attorney did cite some, did cite some reasons there, potential reasons. Like I said, it's anyone's guess what specifically they were referring to, because they didn't specify on a particular one. And I'm like, this doesn't look good. So they probably felt like, hey, look, you're not doing yourself any favors. And I'm not going to be a part of this, because, we've talked to you about this before, and nah, man, I can't represent you if this is the shit that you're going to be doing. So, but again, speculation, don't know for a fact, just saying, like I said, you all could watch that video and determine for yourselves. So what the reasoning may be. I listed what the reasons could be. I don't know if you saw that stream. I listed like the different, citations and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, what they could have used as their reason to withdraw. And like, make your own conclusion. I don't know. Make your own conclusion. I don't know. Can't say. But I think I'll go ahead and wrap it here, because it's gone on for about an hour and a half. But if you stick around for a sec afterwards, TJ, I'll send you the thing real quick. But I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me tonight. It's been a fun stream. I'll try to keep, on top of this as much as I can, to see what's going to happen next, whether it be a hearing or something else. But I might be doing a stream later on this week, just, playing some GTA or some shit, playing some games. So be on the lookout for that. Keep the notifications on. Check Twitter. for the updates, but I appreciate each and every one of you joining me this fine evening. You all have a wonderful night, and I will catch you all on the next one. And thank you, TJ, for joining. Appreciate you, man. All right.